Hello, hello. Hi, Marco. How are you? You're on mute. Huh?
Now it's working, right? Hello, hello.
Yeah, good. How are you doing?
I'm good, I'm good. I hope my audio is good and you can hear me and I don't have an echo.
Yes. Good, good. Very clear.
I'm not at my desk, as you can see, Osama. So
Yeah. You're still in Netherlands, right?
still in the Netherlands, yes, in Gouda. I hope I pronounced that right and didn't slaughter the name. Get kind of hunted by Dutch people.
Thanks so much, Marco, for your time and for your effort accepting the invitation to come here to help the Design Tokens students for our bootcamp. This is the first cohort, so we are very happy you are here. Okay, so maybe you just a little bit quickly start to introduce yourself. We will not take a long time from you. We prepared the questions. I also categorize the questions based on the topic, so maybe you can answer one answer for some questions and so on.
Yeah,
okay.
So that sounds really cool. Yeah. I'm trying to speak slow and clear that everybody can easily understand me. If I'm going too fast, I tend to speak very fast. Please tell me in the chat and I'll reduce the speed again a bit more, okay? Just that everybody can follow along. Okay, so small introduction to myself. My name is Marco. I'm a design system architect working at Token Studio. I'm responsible for customer success and helping our enterprise and organizational customers build their systems in a proper way and build scalable systems. My background is all over the place, I have to admit. I made a school for network technology, then went into photography, had my own company building CRM systems, had a YouTube channel, all over the place. So I'm not a designer, I'm not a developer, I'm something. But having that knowledge about all these different topics really helps me in understanding what systems need and be a good translation layer between design and development. So a lot of times I just see myself as a translator, kind of between the different parts of a company and helping there. Even though my biggest passion is algorithmic design and scalable systems, so really like finding the patterns in systems, in brands, and bringing them into a scalable format. So that's kind of like what I really love to do and kind of like, yeah, it just brings me joy, I would say. Even it's just data, I like it. I have more joy in that than building a nice mock-up or like a nice design. That's like, for me, something interesting, kind of like that I always see. So it's really finding the patterns and cool things. And I don't care if the button is blue, green, or red. For me, I care if like that thing can work on every device in every color mode, on kind of like in light, in dark kind of scenarios, be accessible to everybody. So kind of these are the things that I really like to work on.
Awesome. That's really inspiration. Yeah. Okay, good. So I already tried to categorize the questions. So we have some questions related to the planning, how we start, yeah, like the foundation. Yeah, so Ahmed and Fatima and Nasir here, they're talking about all of this when starting to define tokens in a new project with many business needs, still unclear. Okay, so it looks like we don't have like a good requirement or something like that. How would we approach planning the tokens structure to stay flexible and avoid future rework? Let me also try to explain the other questions, so maybe one answer can fit all.
Yeah.
Fatima talking about for small teams or solo designers, and actually I hear this question from many designers because usually in the companies in Middle East, once they try to implement or giving to the designer the chance to implement the design tokens concept, they will not take it as a team. The company will not invest much money for that at the beginning. Okay, so usually they can be like a solo designer or like 2-3 maximum. Okay. So for the small teams or solo designers, what is the most effective way to start working with the design tokens without making things overly complex. And the last question from Nasser, talking about the tips of introducing a tokens system into a product that already have a lot of visual inconsistency. And I can see also this question, yeah, it's the most common question, yeah. We have a very big problem for inconsistency, and we need to introduce the token system to this project. So talking here about the tips. So what do you think about that?
Let me start from the top, kind of like about how to start projects, and maybe that already answers a few bits of the others also, but at the end, how to start a project and maybe not overcomplicate it. So let's start with the second question. You want to start with a design system and you don't want to overcomplicate it at the beginning. Absolutely valid approach. We all know that somebody's walking around, that we all like kind of like are, I guess most of you are in that situation where like, hey, I want to start the design system and I want to make this happen. And now I need to find the real solution. But a lot of times it's a bit of the other way around. We might want to start it, but there is already things, right? There's a lot of inconsistencies. There's a lot of things already happening, kind of like snowflakes and all. But a lot of times the development team already has something in place. Maybe it's not good. That's a different topic. Okay, don't tell it like that. But something is a lot of times there. They might have CSS variables. They might use Bootstrap, even if it's an old legacy system. They might use Tailwind now with AI generation a lot of times. A lot of times something is there already in code. And most of the component libraries in code, so if we're not talking about this full design system, but really about the code piece, we speak about the component library. A lot of these component libraries have a foundation. And the best way I think to start is actually go to your developers if you can, talk with them what they currently use, and then try to figure out how you can use that kind of in your system. So don't try to invent the wheel again, because you will just run into a wall with the developers because suddenly you invented something, they are on another ship kind of like, and now you need to convert it to that over. That's a nightmare and a lot of frustration for both sides, just in kind of like the synchronization between what we have on both sides. So I would really encourage you to go to your developers, sit down with them, ask them kind of what are you currently using, what do you see as benefits in that system, what do you see lacking in that system, how can I kind of like as a designer give you the right information that you need to be faster in kind of like building what I've designed, kind of like what is this piece kind of like. So I think that kind of like hopefully gives a bit of an input in the second question. The first question immediately plays into that. Most of the times what developers consume. Oh, Ahmed, you have a question. Maybe let's put it in between, or you want to wait?
No, it's okay. Continue.
Okay, so we have kind of like this systems like Tailwind, Bootstrap, older systems, newer systems, whatever, right? One thing. A lot of times they use a semantic layer, kind of like, so they use semantic naming a lot of times. Sometimes they use base naming, like size 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That can be anything, but it's already a bit of semantic, right? It's not like full core values. And that's something you want to keep quite clean and effective. So let's imagine we have a color mode that we want to introduce. Never consume the color mode directly. You always want to have, even if it's like overhead for your work, even if you need to maintain like a duplication of tokens, try to keep a clean separation of your color mode and your semantics. So you could write semantic button background color in your light and dark set. But what happens then is that it might be a nightmare once you need to introduce something in it again, because you suddenly need to remap everything, not only in design, but also in code. But if the last consuming layer for the developers is very stable, it just gives more confidence in the system. People have an easier way of just really using everything and don't have a lot of migrations. And the more migrations your consumers have, the less adoption we'll have over time. Because at some point they will say, like, hey, I did like 3 migrations the last month. I'm a bit done with that. So that's something you really need to watch out, kind of like that you're not overwhelming your developers with a lot of changes, kind of like, and not only your design system developers, but really your consumers of the system. And with Figma variables, we face the same issue, where I hope Figma fixes this in the near future, but it's horrible that we can't move a variable from one collection to another collection. It's a full breaking change, right? And we have no way of fixing it. Everybody will have a ghost variable in the system and will cry because nothing works anymore. And that's like, I hope it gets fixed soon, kind of like, I can't wait for it. But it is like a really annoying thing. So let's imagine you would have your colors on your color mode. You want to change one thing, every consumer's library breaks.
Exactly.
And that's what we want not to happen to them, right? We want them to be happy and like stable. And everything underneath that semantic layer, we actually don't want to show them. That's our stuff, kind of. That belongs in the design system. And they shouldn't care about it, kind of like. And the cool thing is, if we own everything under the semantics, like maybe there's a color mode, there's a breakpoint, there's a density, maybe have English and array, right to left, left to right, right? Maybe all of these different layers that we have above the semantics that give us the context, these we own. We have the power to change everything if the semantic at the end is clean and robust. And that plays into question number one. If the semantic layer is really robust, it's easier to change everything above. And then you can scale. You want to introduce a color mode, you already have colors in semantic, easy. Because if that variable at the end stays the same, you can just point it to a new variable before that. You don't need to point to your global, you now point to your color mode variable. You need to introduce breakpoints for your spacing or like font sizing. No problem, right? Before you directly reference your size 5, now you reference your breakpoint size 5. So that's kind of like
so I change the reference here and I keep the semantic as it is.
Yeah.
See, this is a good plan. So, okay. So the conclusion here until now, at the beginning you said to start, you already have some variables or tokens concept in your project. You just need to search for it, looking for it, sit with the developer, you will find and somehow they already implement something like that. And once you understand this, you can have a plan as a team. So how can we start? Then, yes. If we already have like a few requirements or not clear requirements, how can we start planning and structure the tokens to be flexible? So you prefer, if we are using any library like Tailwind or Bootstrap, for example, they already have the semantic naming. So we keep the semantic naming assigned to our component and we plan for some levels below it. So we play here and do the changes from the references, right?
Yes, that's a good approach, kind of like. And then, like, if you have the kind of buy-in from your developers into the system, which a lot of times, right, we need that kind of, that's convincing of like getting them on board. For them, variables or like it's nothing new. They've used this for like 20 years. So a lot of times it's just like, hey, we have this new cool thing, and they're like, yeah, we have this for 20 years. Give us something cool that we don't know about. So it really is about like that kind of like that thing to like really talk with them, understand what they actually want, what they want to use. And when we have that trust, then we can actually iterate on systems. And that's the good thing. And then also maybe business buys into the financing of the system more, kind of like if they see the collaboration growth and the better outcome of the product quality.
Awesome. Good. Okay, let's go to the second part here, talking about managing and avoiding causes. Also looks like the scaling. Maybe also we answered already. Let's take a look here. The Ahmed talking about how do you usually catch or clean up unused tokens in big systems? Is there any tooling or process you recommend for that?
So the reality is, a lot of times we don't know what's happening on the products that consume the design system. because they're not going to let us look into that, right? A lot of times they're like quite encapsulated and they just consume, but don't give us information back. We don't get into the build pipelines to check what is actually really used. Kind of, we don't get into these processes. What we want is kind of to get in that kind of realm and see what they really use and have analytics. I mean, in Figma Enterprise, you have analytics, but we all know not everybody has an enterprise. It's very expensive. We are mostly an organization. We don't have these insights, kind of like really understanding what is used and what not is user interviews. Kind of talking with the users, asking them, hey, what do you really use? Is this kind of this variable? Are you really like going like, let's imagine we have t-shirt sizes for spacing that go to 5XL and 5XS, like big and small. What are really the values that people use? Do they need everything? Do we need to have this in our system? Because the design system still needs to be lean, kind of like, and not give the user too many choices. It should be enough for building, kind of like, but it shouldn't be overwhelming, and it should not be snowflakes. 6XL might not be the thing that we use every day. That might be something like people use, but then just like give that hard value there and like nobody's heard, right? If it's like 6XL, it's anyways like a very big spacing or something, right? So these snowflakes we don't need in our system too much. We really want like that robust core.
So the problem here, it's not what is the tool to clean this, but the problem is actually we need to know what tokens or variables actually we are using right now. So it looks like we do the UX process and do interviews, research, plan or discover our system, then we can find a way how to clean it, right?
Yes.
I think also another question is the vice versa. So how can avoid creating too many design tokens? I'm not sure, maybe also she mean here, creating too many design tokens, maybe like we create the 3 levels, option tokens, LS tokens, and also component specific tokens. What we know is one of the pain points for component specific tokens, it's that too much effort and time for planning, creating, renaming, creating, and hand off to the developer and so on. So what do you think about how can we avoid creating too many tokens, but also we still managing our design system and make it flexible or scalable?
Yeah. So you had a good point there, the component level, right? Not every design system needs component level tokens. Most developers don't use component level tokens. If you have a very sophisticated system, it's good. Component tokens help you make your system more robust and scalable at the long term. But when you're starting out, component tokens are complete overkill. You probably won't have the time. Your developers will be like annoyed because you need so much stuff, kind of like, and you won't get the money for it. That's just the reality, kind of like when you start a design system. And even if you have existing systems, most of them don't have component tokens. Components use semantics. That's kind of how it's in code. But suddenly would need to refactor kind of like all of your components to give component tokens, which you need to maintain a design. So developers are slower because they can't easily change stuff, which they love to do, right? To get inconsistencies. So yeah, we are in this like, hey, yeah, like they want to use semantic. That's what developers actually want to use. Only when we really grow a system kind of and make it big, then suddenly the component layer gets interesting.
I see. So do you think here, if we have a semantic tokens, okay, and we need to avoid inconsistency, for example, and still managing everything, to have behind the scenes these tokens based on logic, like for example, the contrast check or something like that, to can avoid creating many variables for colors or try to compare between background and foreground color. So you mean this give us flexibility and powerful and avoiding create too many tokens, yeah?
Yes. So a semantic layer, that's kind of like what you said, that has like contrasting pairs of color, like a background and foreground that we know we can use, kind of like giving the developers and designers the easy way to build a system, but they don't need to sync everything, for example, from a color scale. We shouldn't care too much about like, okay, is my 200 working on my 700 or is my 300 working on my 500? And the brand comes in and manually changes one of the scale's colors, and suddenly we are not accessible anymore because somebody made like a change in the wrong direction on the scale and everything breaks, kind of like. So there we need to give this choice, but don't overthink it. We designers love to overthink things, kind of like we think, oh, damn, no, I don't have enough avatar sizes. I only have 5. But like we need one for our like Netflix login, kind of like that is very big. No, you don't. That's an image kind of that's there, and that's like fine because it's on one position and you will not have it a second time in your system. You don't need that login thing in your design system at the beginning. Like absolutely fine to have this. When products arise of we need like 70 different avatars with a width of 200 pixels, you can think about it. But believe me, it's not going to happen. It's like just not the reality. You need your few little avatar sizes that work. That's it, kind of, right? Be kind of like lean, right? Just don't think too much outside the box. People will come and ask for it once they need it, and then you introduce it.
I see. This is a really good plan. I think it can help a lot of designers start to implement the design tokens at the first time in the company. Okay, we minimize it once they need it. We add more to be flexible. Yeah, good plan for that.
Add one more thing to this. Also, when these maybe 5 or 7 people in the company come, it's like, hey, I need a different avatar size. Also ask why. Because suddenly you're automatically doing user research and understanding the reasoning why they need this, and then maybe they don't need that different size. Maybe they actually misused your system.
Exactly. Okay. There is 2 questions here related to this. Maybe we already answered. If I build a design token system on my own, how can I make sure it's easy to scale? I think this one we answered. How do you usually deal with situation where multiple teams want to use the same token name, but slightly different purpose? Did you face issue like this before?
No, I haven't seen it. I actually found that question quite interesting. I was like, okay, good. Right, like semantic meaning is opinionated. That's the case, right? So we need to find the opinion that actually makes sense. Things like, I have had a customer like a few weeks back that used T-shirt sizes for their fonts, for their typography. And they started out with a few T-shirt sizes. Then they realized, oh, we don't have enough typography. We need to go bigger. So we had a large, then they needed an extra large. And they wrote the full name because they started with large, right? So now we had an extra minus large minus headline. And then they were like, oh, we need a bigger one for a banner. So now we have like an extra large title. And then they were like, oh, no, it's still not good enough. We need an extreme large title. So that's the game they played, kind of like. And I mean, like, it's just about like sitting down and finding things with your team, kind of like, and just bring them to the drawing table and say like, okay, what do you guys want for this? What do the others want? Kind of like, let's agree on something. Do we all need all of these different things? Is the word that both of you want to use for the same thing maybe not clear? Because if 2 different teams want something different for that thing, it might not be the right word to use at the beginning. Because it's not definition enough for what it actually is.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks so much. I'm not sure how many questions we have. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Let's pick one from all of this. I do need to waste your time for that. Talking here about the developer and handoff flow. What speaks developer workflow of designers is I think this is a good question. Yeah. What aspects of developer workflows do designers still struggle to fully understand? So based on your experience, you said at the beginning you are translator, sometimes designer, sometimes developer, something like that. And I think you have a good answer for this question. Yeah.
Yeah. So the main thing is code is leading. That's something you as a designer need to keep in mind. It's nice that you design in Figma and you build something, but in reality, no consumer ever will see what you've built. That's the reality. They will see what the developer at the end made out of what you have designed. That's kind of the source of truth. And we need to be kind of like realistic about this. Code is the leading system, And we need to understand that leading system to adjust to what we actually are able to ship. We can make the fanciest SVGs, whatever. If we're not able to ship it in an accessible manner and like in a realistic time frame, nobody's going to use it. That's just the reality. And that means for everybody of you here, kind of like, just start understanding what basic markup means of elements. Start understanding what an API is, which you know, kind of like that's what you change in Figma. But why are some things not synchronous between code and design, like states? In Figma, we need to create an API for a state. In code, that exists, kind of like. In Figma, we can't create superstates easily. So superstates means something that is maybe in active and hover at the same time. So, or like in focus, right? You have an input box. You focused in, and then you maybe hover over it and you want to do something, or disabled and hover, right? Checked and hover. Like all of these are superstates that are really hard to build, and we a lot of times forget that. So something I always recommend designers to do to get better understanding with the developers and with the code is really sketch your components, because it is most of the times about components, in an agnostic way. So sit down and draw the perfect anatomy of a component. We have box and box and box, and maybe some 2 other boxes, right? It's just like really, really like abstract. And then sit down with them and draw a state machine. If you haven't heard about state machines, look into that. It's awesome. It's about defining the full interaction of a component. When you have a state diagram of a component, you suddenly don't forget to design things that you might have not thought about, like superstates. Things like this, kind of, once you have a state machine, there's a clear outline and a script of what you need to implement. It's just giving you a kind of like to-do list of what you have to do.
I see.
Like, yeah, really understanding these. You don't need to have the nitty-gritty of every technical implementation, but understand what markup means, understand how styling works, and what states kind of like elements are in. These are the 3 pieces. When you understand these, you don't need the rest, because then it goes into business logic. That's what the developers do.
I see. So to make this answer simple, I will try to explain it, and you just tell me this is also what you mean or not. So for example, let's go to Bootstrap, search for the button component, and start to see how they style it. What classes shared between the buttons, what different classes for specific buttons, and we can see also the different states, what for outline, what for hover, focus, disable, why they keep calling between primary and secondary, different variables for text color, it's still white, and we try to understand this logic. Maybe also ChatGPT, we can ask ChatGPT, okay, explain this to me, for me as a designer, from a point of view of the developer to understand this. So to go to this stage, we can understand more and we can find like a common language between designer and developer. Is it correct?
Yeah. And as you said, AI is an amazing teacher when it comes to these things. You can really just ask, hey, draw me a state machine for a checkbox. And it will actually give you a quite good schema of what this looks like. So, and then you suddenly get, oh, I didn't think about that one specific state. Because
I still remember once I asked you a long time ago about what did you learn, what did you study to come with this, like graph engine, technically working, and you take the type scale example. Yeah, you put like the base font size 16. I need some step up, some step down like this, and you showed me. You go to ChatGPT asking, okay, explain this. What is the math, the basic math behind it, and it try to give you information. After that, you reach it to geometric, or I think, yeah, geometric layers or something like that, and you understand the logic. And you are not good in math, but you understand the logic, then you start to build it same on graph engine. Then you compared the same result, the font sizes that ChatGPT give to you and the result on graph engine, and you did it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the thing I wanted to find behind it is the pattern. What was the pattern behind that scale, kind of like? That's what I asked it, kind of like, and it's like, For example, for everything that's dimension based, you can just ask and like give it all your sizes, and then ask like, hey, can you find a rhythm, an algorithm, kind of like a logic behind these numbers? And for a lot of times, you get one. Maybe not one consistent one, but a lot of times it's two different ones. One for maybe smaller numbers and one for bigger numbers, kind of like, so one going up and down. But you will find something that makes sense. Maybe not perfect values, but very close.
Awesome. Okay, this is the last one. They're talking about any AI features coming soon for Studio platform, or also anything like MCP model will be for Studio platform. And one more question, it's not here. They're asking me about the license for individuals or small teams.
Yeah. So for the license, I don't know. We haven't figured out what the pricing will be kind of for like smaller tiers yet, kind of like. So the organizational plan will be released very soon, hopefully, kind of like. So we're still in the final steps of wrapping up the release, kind of like. So that will be out soon. The current smallest tier we haven't yet figured out. So we're going top, bottom, like big to medium, and then we will release a smaller plan probably in the next months, kind of like somewhere when we figured out kind of what actually comes with an organization with kind of computation and everything in the background. We need to have these statistics that we can actually see what we need to charge for all the execution. But maybe like going back, sorry, Osama, kind of like a few questions there, kind of like, so are there any AI features currently exploring in Studio? Yes, we're exploring a lot of AI features, kind of like in Studio. Things we are doing at the moment is we are actively working on rule sets for an AI, for design systems. So for example, we already have a quite substantial rule set for AI when you are in Studio, where you can send your tokens through kind of your full set, and it will audit it against rules we have defined and give you suggestions what to change in your system to make it more robust or more scalable, for example. So it doesn't matter in which stage your design system is, there's a big sophisticated rule set in the background that will validate. Also for naming schema, like inconsistencies. When we say like we scan the full system, it will tell you, hey, in your button, your state is kind of like in semantic segment 2, and in the checkbox, it's in 5. Something like this, kind of like it can already tell. For the MCP, yes, we are actively working on an MCP server, kind of like for Studio, that will give your code the information of your system and help to get on-brand code generation. Yeah.
Good. Thanks so much, Marco. I'm not sure you still have time or not. Maybe some
minutes, yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, have questions, but I really want to thank you for all of this information. 100%. I learned a lot. I take a lot of notes here. I think I have to study a lot of things now. Was really, really inspired. Thanks so much again.
Thank you.
Guys, anyone want to ask Marco last questions before he say goodbye?
No questions. That's good. Maybe I answered everything already. You will have questions. You're full-time in design systems. That's like what design systems are. It's just constant questions and challenges, but it's cool. But you are the top percentile, right, of designers.
Thank you. Yeah, the good news is what I noticed from all the information you shared with us, we have to understand technically how the tools working behind the scenes, how the developers working. This can help us to come closer to the developer concept, come closer to the reality, how the companies can implement the design tokens, and this something really important. Yeah, Nasser. Okay, go ahead, Nasser.
Hey, Mark, how are you? I'm just wondering about some edge cases. So yeah, we need to align with the dev team. Also, we can't just plan things on our own and leave them out of the process, right? So we need to keep them in the loop, right?
You should actually take them as a bit of the guidance and try to kind of like make them happy.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to say, but development has the budget. If they are happy, we get money. So like that's the important piece we need to keep in mind, right? That's like a 10-to-1 ratio of where the money lies in the company. Like 10 times the size of budget is on development. That's the reality.
Thank you.
So yeah, if you want to keep your job, always make your developers happy.
Good. Thank you so much. Okay. Kiro?
So I thought about what you said, that designers need to understand more about coding and development. And I had this question on my mind for a few days. Will designers need to understand code and engineering? And will both roles merge maybe in a few years? Maybe we'll have product managers and others that are engineers and designers, because coding seems to be getting easier and easier with AI tools that can generate code seamlessly. And maybe in a few years, we won't need coders as much as engineers and people who understand structure and database and stuff like that.
Yeah. So we are in a transition phase, right? AI is on the rise. Everybody has an easier way of creating products, especially if we know what we want to describe and we understand a bit of code. If you don't understand anything of code, your generation is quite random and you will not get consistent output. And probably like that's what you experienced, kind of, right? When you prompt something and you don't know what to explicitly ask, it will change every second prompt, what you get as an output. Sometimes it's Tailwind, sometimes it's not Tailwind, sometimes it's like random code, sometimes it's CSS, sometimes it's inline, whatever. But what Osama also said before, kind of like, I want to get back to that, kind of like saying kind of we are in a phase of transition, and Figma is currently our design tool and they are offering something new. But 15 years ago, it was Photoshop, or let's say, and Photoshop is in our world dead. Like that's the reality. Now the next thing is Figma, but 15 years in, it might be Figma's death if they don't step up, kind of like. And we're getting closer and closer to these generational tools. Like, I don't know if you've ever looked at Subframe. Like, try it out. It's really cool experience. It's completely different. It's, as a designer, prompting and getting a variation to choose from, and then just dragging pieces together. And that's where we move. Like, the market opens suddenly up to a ton of new design tools that are very close to code. And with better code generation from LLMs and everything, the better you understand code, the better you can generate, the better products you will create. And you might not need developers for the beginning, but I can tell you, we are not at the point that like senior developers are replaced. Code generation is still like needs guidance. AI needs guidance, and it will stay like that for quite some time. And that's not only because it's hard, that are actually just an energy game. So for an LLM to have the context of what we humans, kind of like on that architecture level, can do, it's interestingly, the LLM is more expensive than the human in kind of like to do it, because of the energy footprint. At the moment, everybody's subsidizing AI, that's why it's so cheap. But in reality, each of the AI companies in the world at the moment makes losses, massive losses on each prompt. So I think, I don't know what the exact number is for OpenAI, but I think they have a loss for like about 30 euros for each pro subscription per month in average, because that's the reality. Like, and like a ton of energy goes in every prompt we write. I think like one prompt, regular prompt, is 2 hours of a light bulb running. So keep that in mind, kind of like.
Just one little thing. I didn't get the name of the tool you mentioned.
Subframe.
Subframe, right?
Subframe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me just write in chat. Yeah. So really interesting. There's a few other ones. I forgot the second one. It was UX Pilot, I think, something like that. They're really interesting. They're completely different. They are code generation under the hood. Subframe currently is completely Tailwind, but you just go in there, you prompt something, and it just gives you an interface. And then you can right-click on that and say like, hey, okay, I want to change something. And the cool thing, what Figma doesn't do with its make and whatever, is they give you variation. They give you 4 different versions that are already in code. There is no developer needed anymore. And it's actually quite clean code, not what Figma makes is creating. So it's like really clean code that you can actually ship it to developers that just need to add the business logic, maybe.
Awesome.
And there will be, like, I can tell you, in the next 3 years, there will be 15 other tools like that.
That's really interesting. Thanks so much, Marco, for your time, for all of this information. And thank you behind all of these designers from Middle East community also. Some other designers is still jealous. Yeah, once I announce it, they understand this will be public, like for our community, not for specific our camp. Yeah. So thanks so much for your time again, and see you 1st of July, right?
The 1st of July? Yeah, I think so. 2nd of July. I think it's 2nd.
Second?
Yeah. One last thing to the message. V0 is a bit different. V0 is full application generation. Subframe is a design tool. It is made for designers. So it's a bit different, kind of like, because in V0 you make one prompt and you get something. Subframe is Figma in code with AI generation.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
So thank you very much for having me. I hope I could, like,
we just need one photo. You take a photo screenshot or something. Yeah, this is a really good chance for our first cohort. Yeah, so feel free, guys, to open the camera. It's up to you. 1, 2, 3. You also can take your screenshots. Thanks so much. Thanks Marco so much. Say hi to them. Bye.
That was the team. Bye bye, everybody. Have a nice evening or night.